Welcome to another weekend here on the platform. It is our tradition to examine developments in the polity, and today's program will follow suit. My name is Sam Omashe. The Chief Justice of Nigeria certainly has a case to answer, but the argument from his brothers at the bar is, are the lines between right and wrong so blurred that due process has been abandoned? They are up in arms against the government over the non-asset declaration trial of Chief Justice of Nigeria, Walter Onoge, and he rose to the top at a critical time, and just like his predecessors, Acting Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, is already talking tough. As the general election approaches, all eyes are on him to see if his statements are mere rhetoric or if he will walk the talk. He never thought he would see the big 80, but to his greatest delight, he has joined the League of Octogenarians. Find out who our person of the week is. He was overwhelmed by the outpouring of love as political gladiators and loved ones gathered to celebrate him as he turned the big 80 or 80, a miracle he never envisaged. Early death in his family prepared him for an early exit, but alas, he is still here, still kicking and graying with pride. The man people call Baba Omo KKK. The latest octogenarian, Bisi Akonde, is our person of the week. Congratulations, sir. Public affairs analyst Ambrose Igboke, you're welcome here.
Thank you very much.
Joins me to analyze topical issues. First, the CJN's CCT trial. It is very interesting that this issue has divided the country, as it were, and his brother lawyers have lined up behind him. What is your take on what is going on?
Well, not all the brother lawyers have lined up behind him. Some are for him, some are against him. Yeah. And then we start wondering whether it is the same constitution the lawyers are interpreting. Because they call themselves the learned men, and we are unlearned. Yes. But even with that,
but they say we are educated, but not learned. Maybe in this case, it's better to be educated than learned.
Because they are confusing us.
Yes.
Because when laws are now subjected to interpretation vis-a-vis sentiments, or at which side of the divide you stand, then it becomes a problem. But again, when we look at it critically, the CJ, the man in question, has agreed that there was a violation.
Yes.
But again, some lawyers have argued that the CCT has no right to take him to trial because that when you admit in writing that there was a violation by your own admittance via writing, that CCT is not supposed to take you to trial.
That what should happen?
That by your own admission, the CCT is not supposed to encourage you to rectify your mistake. Well, that is some argument.
Is this an argument that should be rectified?
Well, it's an argument by some learned friends.
Yes.
Where the most vociferous argument has been that, okay, even if it has accepted, and the man has accepted that he has erred, feigning ignorance or forgetfulness or mistake, which is not an excuse in law, one divider said the due process was not followed, that it was supposed to be reported into the Nigerian National Judicial Council, the NJC, and then who will now recommend the necessary actions to be taken against him. That is not the place of the executive to tell him or to recommend vis-a-vis whether softly or by fiat to tell him to recuse himself from the position of the Chief Justice of Nigeria. So therein lies the argument. Now, the most important thing is this: what does the law say? And many vociferous lawyers have come to say the law says, go report this man to the NJC, Then they'll make the necessary recommendation and to the National Assembly as well, who first of all confirm this appointment, and then who has the right to also recommend his removal. And so the action can be taken by the executive.
Yeah.
That the way the executive went about it, that they smell a rat and the hand of Esau.
Yeah.
And therefore, they're lined up against it, saying that it's a travesty of justice. So for them, the independence of the judiciary is being threatened. And that is the whole hoopla about this. Therefore, where do Nigerians stand? Nigerians stand to look at it. Must due process be followed? We should follow due process. We should not dispense of due process when we feel like it. Whether it is slow in coming or whether it is fast in coming, we should stick to the process. And it's because of our penchant for not sticking to processes that have led us to where we are today. In fact, it just crossed my mind some 30 minutes ago that by next year, Nigeria will be 60 years of independence. And then we are still crawling. And that is due to the lack of due processes in many of the things we do. So as far as we are concerned, the right thing should be done. The federal government should pursue the case to a logical conclusion by following the due process as laid down by the Constitution.
Now, the question that some people have asked, including myself, is when Onoge was was filling the forms about his assets, was he filling it as a lawyer or as a public servant? So Onoge was there not as a lawyer, but as a Nigerian citizen who failed to do what he was supposed to do. So he will be tried not as CJN, but will be tried in the CCT as a Nigerian citizen. That the lawyers were supposed to understand this, but somehow, by some form of tendentious obfuscation, they have decided, because the CJN is one of their own, to forget some of the most brilliant lawyers. I've forgotten that some of us are also literate.
Well, I like the picture you have painted. Yeah. Very idealistic.
No, but that is the truth.
Very utopian. But they will argue. You know, this one school of thought that you have presented.
Yes.
The other school of thought will argue that the case is a little bit different because he's a lawyer. Because if you're not a lawyer, you cannot be the CJN.
Yes, it cannot be CJN.
So it cannot be divorced.
Yeah.
The two personality, the profession and the position you're involved.
Yes.
Anybody can be a commissioner from
yes.
any profession. But anybody cannot be a CJN. You must be a lawyer.
But,
so
not everybody can be the Attorney General of the Federation.
But he must be a lawyer.
He must be a lawyer to be but the Attorney General of the Federation will go through the
yes, so
if the Attorney General of the Federation does the same thing, will he go to the CJN?
So to the CCT?
Will it go? Will
to the NJC?
Insist that you go to the NJC? Yes.
Well, depending on what the Constitution says. But again,
if you want to follow the argument, then the lawyer who becomes the Attorney General.
Yes.
Will go there. Then they had the Minister of Health, who is a medical doctor. We have to go to medical council.
But that's not what the Constitution says.
Yeah, but the Constitution doesn't say that in what you need to do in the declaration of your assets is that you have to go to the NJC.
But they mentioned conduct.
So.
Because the CCT is a code of conduct.
Yes.
And the Constitution mentioned in his conduct, in the discharge of his duties.
He has not discharged his duties.
So that's conduct.
Conduct in charge of this. He has not discharged his duties.
They are latching on that conduct.
Yes.
It has a wider interpretation.
Yeah, conduct as a lawyer in the process of.
Well, you are the one limiting it to that conduct.
No,
it could also be conduct. It could also be misconduct in lack of asset declaration. And there's another argument, sir. The argument is also that he declared his assets as a justice of the Supreme Court. That a Chief Justice of Nigeria is just first among equals in the justices of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Therefore, when he was coming to the Supreme Court, there was an asset declaration.
Yes.
That's another argument.
Yeah.
That asset declaration is supposed to last for 5 years. And they have declared that there's a domiciliary account. But there was that the law does not tell you that you declare the contents of the account. And that the law does not forbid you to own a domiciliary account, but a foreign account. So in all this,
but all those ones are not important. The point is that he was supposed to have declared it. He said he forgot. But how again? The real question is, Onoge is putting us through all of this unnecessarily because he believes that he knows he has done something wrong.
Which he accepted.
If he has accepted, why is he putting us throughout all of this?
He accepted, and what they are now saying is that the fiat, you see, that is why sometimes.
No, what they are saying, because I want to move to another topic.
Yeah.
Is that if you know all of this, you have done wrong. You have already compromised your capacity to be trusted, even to sit on that chair. Why don't you just resign and stop all this?
No, he said, try me the right process. And if I found guilty, I will go.
But he himself has already said that he's guilty. Substantially, he already knows that he's guilty.
What if you go to court and say, hey, Sam, I'm guilty? The judge will tell you, let me try you before I tell you that I'm guilty.
Technicality for technicality's sake. That's what they say, technicality for technicality's sake.
Well, he has to be tried.
Will Mohammed Adamu excel in his exalted position? That's what some people ask. But the question many other people are asking is, why do you take somebody who is an assistant commissioner police and you jump over some of his colleagues who were even at that position before him, and you go to the Deputy Inspector General of Police and all of them there, and you sweep all of them away, and you put that man there because he's a favorite son?
Well, he has said that he will retain at least 3 or 4 out of the DIGs because they are his classmates.
Yes, so but does that...
Well, this kind of... somebody once told me that when you get to the position of AIG, that becomes political appointment.
Yes.
So that the professional level...
But does that justify it?
It's not justified, but precedents have been set.
But it gives opportunity for anybody to just pick anybody.
I think it was Chief Olusegun Obasanjo that set that precedent.
Yes.
You know, so and since
with
then,
Tafa
Balogun. So he started...
It turned out that he became a flawed candidate.
So that
it turned out the person he picked became a flawed candidate. So it doesn't follow that if you pick somebody from...
Well, once a precedent has been set, and there are no laws that actually prohibit it, then the tendency is to follow it when it suits them, the political actors. Therefore, he has done that, and I don't think any law forbids it. But again, why, as you said, why will you cut off the career of so many promising officers just because you want to pick somebody from the ladder? They're eminently qualified, the DIGs. They're eminently qualified. So why didn't you pick from that cadre? So that is, well, that's the political system we find ourselves. And nobody it has not been questioned. It's not prohibited. It's not unlawful. Therefore, they have done it because the precedent has been set. Having said that, the new man, well, from his area of this thing we saw.
Charge of responsibilities.
No, from the CV. From his CV, he looks somebody that can deliver. But again, all of them come, spitting fire at the early stage. So we'll test them. We'll see. He has made 2 strategic moves, retaining the Edgar Emohimi as commissioner for Lagos, reversing that posting.
We'll see how that lasts.
And then
how long that lasts.
the commissioner, the spokesperson of the police also immediately moved out. But I felt that that is a kind of indictment on the former IG. If a position has been, if the post has been made.
But that's what happened to the former IG too. When he came, he tried to undermine his predecessor. Now this one is trying to undermine his predecessor too. It looks like everybody tries to show that
they're in charge. Power. I mean, even the funny way it happened, where they were already at the handing over ceremony,
and
then the journalists were already there. Everybody it was so untidy.
Already packed into
yes, it was already untidy. It's very untidy,
Yeah.
And then such a thing should not happen. So that's again, the outgoing IG should not have done what he did anyway, knowing that. He didn't
expect.
Well, he had a meeting with the president, and I'm sure he knows that he was going. So at least 3 days before he announced his resignation, and that posting was done barely 48 hours before he left.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I'm Bruce Igboke. Very articulate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam.
The big talk is with Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN. You're welcome, sir.
It's good to talk to you again, Sam, and let me start on a happy note. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah, we are on the cusp of election, and people will say, well, the bellwether minister, has he delivered?
I have delivered, without a doubt. And And I think it is important to say that very, very early in my tenure, I set the agenda on the three sectors, power, works, and housing, and I walked my talk. The agenda for power was get more energy, incremental power. We have done that. We have increased generation. We have increased transmission. We have increased distribution from what we met. But beyond the increment, we are getting feedback that inspires us that we're on the right track. And that includes people's comments saying that, well, their power experience is certainly better now than before we took over. They are spending less money to power generators. The hours for which power is available has increased, but our work is by no means done. We haven't finished. There's a lot of work to do. Move to steady power by completing some of our projects in transmission, in generation, getting the distribution end to work through government policies, such as the distribution expansion program to help them install equipment that they cannot finance on their own, and so much more. We have also started connecting people who were not connected at all before. So there are people like places like Magboro, Odiaye. Magboro is in Ogun State, Odiaye is in Ondo State, Ibafo, who were never even connected. They are now connected. There are business clusters who didn't have power. We are now connecting markets from Ikmori in Lagos to Sura Market, to markets in Ondo, Ibadan, to Area in Abia, Sabungari. And we're going to do more of that. We have started 9 projects in 9 universities to give them their own independent power. That's a mini grid policy. So it's still work in progress, but the results is delivering. On roads, our agenda was very simple. We will first restore all of the jobs that had been lost by contractors who had laid off workers because they were not paid. We've paid. Most, if not all, of those contractors are back to site. More kilometers of road are being completed. But the important thing is that journey time is beginning to reduce on major highways. And the feedback I also got from this Christmas is that their journey experience traveling for Christmas in 2018 was better than 2017, which was better than 2016, which was better than 2015. And that's how you progressively solve problems. On housing, our agenda was also clear that the solution to housing is not just building, it's also identifying what product people will buy, because there's so many empty houses that people can't either afford or don't like. So we've done a study. We are now constructing a pilot that is based on our study to see whether people will accept and whether they can afford. That's going on in 34 states. So we have delivered without a doubt, and we have done a lot more with less.
Yeah, on power, I remember having a conversation with Olisa Agbakoba on this show, and I said he still doubts the whole idea of saying that you have 7,000 megawatts and so on, and there are some places that still don't have regular light, even some don't even have light at all and so on. There's a sense that some people say, oh, I'm having a lot of light, and some people say, I don't really have light. For instance, in Benin, there have been complaints in Edo State, for instance, that in Benin they have been going through persistent power failure. Is that just a local isolated case, or what's going on?
Okay, I think people must first understand the nomenclature, the terms. And that is why I continue to speak about it, so that we become familiar with it. They are no longer esoteric terms. First of all, whatever is credited to Mr. Agbakoba clearly also is consistent with what I've said. We haven't finished. We haven't reached everybody. And I'm not pretending, I didn't suggest that we have. But those we have reached are saying it's getting better. Those who didn't even have service before are now getting it, but it's not steady yet. Yeah. Those who we haven't reached, we are beginning to reach them through our mini grids. Those are the kind of markets and clusters that were not even connected at all. And as I said earlier, It's a distance, it's a marathon, but we will get there. Benin, for example, we have a new power plant, 459 megawatts by Azura. So it's sitting in Edo State. It's sitting on gas. So the power is there. The problem is, how do we connect it to the last mile, and can people pay for it? Those are strong infrastructure and economic issues. So that doesn't mean the power is not available. Azura was not there when I became minister. It was a project on paper. It has been delivered. So it's like having a generator in your house, but you haven't connected the changeover switch. But it doesn't mean the generator is not available. So the power is available. So nobody should doubt that. The problem now is, out of the 7 that we have, the 7,000, we can only get 5,000 through to consumers. Part of the problem is that the last mile connection issues, there are bad poles that you will see across. There are old wires that can't take all of their installed capacities. There are communities where the transformer that was there was probably 60 MVA 30 years ago, and it is now serving 5 times the number it was installed for. Those are the people for whom the discos are now responsible to expand those capacities. But let me close on that by explaining it in perhaps layman's language. So you have a 5 kVA generator in your house. It's 5 kVA, so there is no doubt about it that it can deliver 5 kVA. If you can only plug one bulb, a bulb is about 60 or 40 watts. All that you will see on the meter when you switch on the generator is 40 watts. That's all the meter will read. If you switch on an AC, it will read more. But if you don't connect that AC,
the capacity is still there.
The capacity is there. And it is increasing.
Now, talking about trying to install, trying to adapt to various environments, there must be cultural issues from different areas in trying to really install. I'm trying to prepare my way towards discussing Mambila.
Okay.
But there must be cultural issues like the problem you have with Surah, probably going to be a different one from what you have in, say, in Akwa Ibom.
Undoubtedly,
like that.
undoubtedly.
So how do you navigate this?
This is why I go around getting full grasp of what is on ground. And that is why I challenge all those who sit in the classrooms and theorize. Everybody knows how to build power. It's proven science. But the science in which you are trained doesn't tell you how to solve local issues. And that is what I have done with every sense of modesty in my public life. Every project has challenges. Compensation issues, you want to build a road, you need to move somebody's wall. It becomes an issue. He goes to court to say, don't touch my wall.
Yes.
You're affecting my right to property.
Exactly.
And so the challenging interests of public interest over private rights comes in. So these are issues. We had a site when we were trying to complete the switching station in Ikotekpene, for example. We had a problem there. The contractor was driven from the site. They put juju there, and the contractor ran away. We solved that problem. And we called the juju people back and said, look, these are issues. We want the land. How much do you want? And so we valued their land. Our land surveyors advised us. We paid compensation, and we completed that part of the project.
That was you appeased the gods.
Well, we appeased the people. So there are issues. There's even in sites like Kashimbila, there were communal issues. People were fighting. We solved it. Kashimbila will be ready. In Zungeru, we met a 700 megawatt hydropower plant. Work had stopped for 3 years because some lawyers had gone to court to injunct the project account because their own commissions and their advisory fees were not paid, which was a very small part of the larger project sum. But we solved it. It got paid. 700 people are working on that site now. So we see all of these issues. We have issues, for example, even in works. There are places like in the northeast in Maiduguri where we found out that, oh, look, listen, Our contractors are scared because of the constant engagement between our security forces. So it's not a clement environment. What have we done? We've called the Army Corps of Engineers. They have a company called SAPAS. And we're saying, since the contractors have relinquished this thing, work must go on. Recently, I think we went to Federal Executive Council to say, let us award these bridges, 3 bridges, to the Army Corps of Engineers to build. And that is also consistent with best global practice, where even in peacetime, the military is involved in executing infrastructure projects. So we continue to deal with each one on their merits and as they come.
Mambila, what is the latest on Mambila? I understand you are now making a push because it has been a kind of a sick baby of power for decades.
Well, there's so many angles to Mambila. One angle is that it will give us an improved energy mix. So it will reduce our total dependence on hydrocarbons, gas, and all of that. That's one. It will give us more power, 2. But beyond that, the place where Mambila is situated is perhaps Nigeria's bequest of nature from God.
Very scenic.
It's a very, very scenic and prolific area for so many things. Tourism, agriculture, and so on and so forth. And so Mambila, again, will unleash the opportunities in that area. Incidentally, that is not too far. It's in the same state where Kashimbila is.
Yes.
Now, but beyond that, this is an almost $6 billion investment of infrastructure. And that is so important. The end product is power, agri, and so on. But the beginning is the rebuilding of a national economy. And not many nations undertake a $6 billion project at once. And so what Mambila will do first is jobs. And let me break that down. To build Mambila, one of the components, quantities, is 18 million bags of cement, 18 million tons of aggregates, rocks, granite, sand, that has to be mined, right? And then 42,000 tons of steel that has to be produced. We have steel companies in Nigeria, so you can see tomorrow's economy already. When steel companies are sure that an order of 42,000 tons is coming, they are going to increase demand for manpower, investment in equipment, and that will create employment. Now, to manufacture cement, one of the things you need, I think, is limestone. That's mining, just to even mine limestone. Not to talk of the manufacturing processes. So all the cement companies in Nigeria must be looking ahead and start positioning if they are smart, and I'm sure they are. Then, so to transport 18 million bags of cement, let me just give you some hypothesis. 80 bags of cement, 800 bags of cement go on one truck. Roughly, that will be about 225,000 trucks. They will need diesel, they will need petrol, they will need drivers, they will need tires, they will need the trucks. So suppliers of trucks, this is what President Buhari is trying to deliver. This is what has taken 40-something years to do, and we are at the cusp. But even before all of this construction work starts, surveyors are going to be involved. So just 2 days ago, we approved, and lawyers, no, I will come to it. Just 2 days ago, we approved a contract to employ 9 surveying firms. Their work is to demarcate the specific footprint where the project will sit. So even before the brick and mortar starts, Mambila has started producing jobs. 9 surveying firms and their employees are going to start work. So this is what I see already. Now, apart from that, before we even advertise expression of interest for work, we have received 129 applications from the last count. Banks, insurance companies, insurance brokers, security companies, logistics companies, supply companies, those who supply plants and equipment, those who want to supply. So it is going to be big. So I can see a sizable number of Nigerians working in the northeast of Nigeria, particularly in Taraba, over a period of 5 years. And that will be a tremendous economic driver. And this is important.
It could be a counterfoil to the joblessness.
Precisely. It's not going to be, it's not whether it will be, it will be.
Yeah.
People will be involved. Then the estimates upon which the designs and the project was conceived is that about 200,000 people have to be relocated, compensated, and resettled. So you are going to enumerate, you are going to pay money cash, then you are going to build new settlements, new towns, new roads with water and all of the hygienics and all of it. So it's a social
shopping malls.
Everything is a social. Then to move equipment there, new roads have to even be built. We've already done a transport survey of how heavy equipment will be moved from port to land and transported. Those roads have to be built. So anybody who is serious must be looking Mambila.
Yeah, it shows too that the Nigerian problem kept all of this waiting for a long time because of issues about land ownership and so on.
No, it's not just, it was not land ownership at all. It's just, it was just too many side interests. That's what the records reveal. Too many side interests and lack of consistency, and people who were not propounding any actual value to the project, but who were just looking at how much can I make without actually breaking brick, without actually awarding the contract. So what President Buhari has done is to say, first of all, where are we? Minister, how do we get this project going? This was one of the benefits of his trip to China, to speak to his counterparty, to say, look, we know that there are 3 Chinese firms here, but we need you to move them forward, get them to work together, because you are going to finance it, a loan from China Exim, and we will provide the counterpart fund, and all of that.
How do we get the assurance that with all the smoothness of your delivery, we are going to get all of this actually on the table one day? Because in Nigeria, we've had all of these florid talks about very ambitious projects, and they remain potential up to today.
One of the things I try to do in every position I find myself is first recognize that I will not be there forever. And so what I try to do is to plan very hard, build knowledge around teams, so that whether I'm there or not, it can work if the right person takes it on from where I left. And my own rule of life is that when you inherit an environment, take it off from where the person started, if the optics make sense to you. So in essence, if the wheel turns, don't reinvent it.
Now the thing is, how much difference will it make to power generation in Nigeria?
It will give us a design base load capacity of 3,050 megawatt. But let me make this point very clear. Virtually all dams, hydro dams, don't deliver fully on their design capacity. And this is because unlike thermal plants that require specific amount of gas that you control, you don't control the supply of water, which is the driver of the turbines.
Yes. So it needs a lot of integrated work.
Oh yes, I mean, all of that has been put into the design, but it will always give us the fallback to balance when you have gas issues or price of gas suddenly goes up, because in dispatching energy also, there is a dispatch order that always gives preference to first load the cheapest power before you load the more expensive power.
You must be aware that the northern states are also working in an integrated fashion, unified fashion, towards creating solar energy for that region. I understand that they are really working hard at it. Is there a synergy with your ministry in this regard?
There is, and it's not just the northern states, even states in the south. Everybody is now involved in power, and this is what I've encouraged. Every state has an opportunity now to play in the industry, whether as the sponsor of a project, or even through special purpose vehicles. They can do embedded distribution and generation. They can pilot mini grids and so on and so forth. They can also partner with discos to invest in distribution equipment. So we have a couple of those projects, but one of the challenges we face is that those projects were designed to be sold, for the power to be sold to government through embed. And so we've reviewed it, and we don't think that those designs are sustainable over the long haul if it is federal government that becomes the guaranteed purchaser of those power plants. It is not government that needs the power. In any event, government and our people have passed a law that says that power should be privatized. So we're working with some state governments to say, look, why don't you do some of what we've done when I was governor? You develop the power, pay for it, it is your local need, and you finance it.
Sukuk. The last time you spoke, you talked about the 100 billion naira. I understand you have another 100 billion. And they're going to go through like 28 projects across the country. I've seen some of the, but they are like, I think the longest is about 70 kilometers. Yes. How will you assess the first tranche and this one? But the first tranche seems to have done some work, especially maybe around Lagos and some other parts of the country, the port area and some other part of the country. I understand there was a little controversy over the first one, and that the money was not enough. And also that the Senate did not give you the amount of money you wanted, and that's created the creativity with the sukuk. Now, what this has meant is that as Minister of Works, you are not working with the kind of money you want.
Look, I think the way to look at it is to understand that we left infrastructure investment
in fallows for a long time.
In fallows for a long time. And so our population and our economic needs have outgrown the stock of infrastructure we have. Most of the infrastructure that is driving our country today was that built immediately after the Civil War.
Yes.
So there's now a gap. So we won't have enough money. But we lost big opportunities when we had petrodollars and we didn't invest in infrastructure like other petrol-driven economies like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Dubai. And so if you look at what we have done with our resources, we have an allocation of about 2 million barrels of crude oil per day, for example. Saudi has about 11. So we're just almost 20% of what they have. They have spent $410 billion. $410 billion in the last 10 years. And you will see rail, you will see new airports, you will see new roads, and all of that.
For a smaller population.
Yes, just take 20% of $400 billion. That would be about 80 billion. Can you account for any asset of $80 billion in Nigeria in infrastructure? Certainly not. So, but those are lost opportunities. We're moving on. And so, at a time when we don't have enough, but we certainly need the infrastructure, we're borrowing. So the Sukuk provides that kind of thing. So for those who have also argued, oh, let PPP come, let private sector come, this is one private sector initiative because it is private capital now that is coming into the investment to build public infrastructure on a tenured funding basis that is repayable over, I think, about 7 years or so, if my recollection of the tenure of the bond. So the first one was successful. That's why the investors have come back again. Let's do another one. It was even oversubscribed. Now, again, this is the impact of infrastructure on the economy. So the commitment to build, which is what was done immediately after the Great Depression, the New Deal in 1929, after the World War, the Marshall Plan, in recent times, China and Dubai, is driving the Nigerian economy. Over 1,000 private investors put money in the Sukuk, and they are going to make money because we want to build a road. Now, as for the check, The people who own the check, not just the Ministry of Power Works and Housing, it's not even the contractors. The real owners of the check are the miners who are going to supply sand. Construction companies don't keep building material, they don't keep sand, they don't keep granite, they don't keep cement, they don't keep steel. When you pay them, they go to their suppliers. Oh yeah, produce bitumen, produce, I need diesel, I want to buy tires. The last sukuk, one contractor told me that he just ordered 600 new tires. Somebody has benefited in this economy. He told me, for example, he said for the first time in 10 years, he has paid down all his overdraft. He was owing banks because the previous managers of the economy before us were owing him. He has cleared his overdraft so he can renegotiate new terms. So banks are also going to benefit. You know what? The $100 billion, 100 billion naira is not going to go through my ministry's account alone. They are going to get it through banks. So as the money is moving from one bank to the customer's account, to the contractor's account, is turnover and money for the banks. The banks are now going to do a second transfer to suppliers. And you see how the economy begins to interlink. And you will see this offtake from the last quarter report in transportation, in construction, and in electricity. Those sectors are growing consistently. So this is what happens. So when they now begin to produce sand, granite, cement, stones, again the drivers take over after the miners are produced. Trucks begin to move. Those who are supplying diesel begin to supply. The economy is on its way back without a doubt. So for those who are weaponizing jobs, who are weaponizing poverty, we must remember that we got here because they stopped investing in infrastructure. So China is rich today because it built. We can't be rich without building. There's no way. It's proven over a century. Economies move from underdevelopment to development by investing first in infrastructure. And then after the investment in infrastructure, you now go to maintenance. And I'm happy to report to you that we have passed the first national maintenance framework ever by a federal government in Nigeria. The first one was in Lagos, and I was privileged to have midwifed that. And it created jobs for small businesses. And it's the small businesses that drive economies. Yes. Facility management company who now employ painters, electricians, bricklayers, plumbers, gardeners, and then demand soap, water, chemicals to repair buildings. In every asset, in every house that you build, there's a time when the bulb goes off, the switch doesn't work. Yes. If you do maintenance, you create work. Yeah. That has been approved last week in FEC. It's now to get the job going.
In the last debate, this vice presidential debate, the PDP vice presidential candidate, Obi, gave a knock that the APC government has not been doing much to revive the economy. What would you say to that? Because you're talking about converting things you have said now to food on the table.
I will speak on the economic side. Yes. I will leave the candidates, because happily I'm not a candidate in any election. I'll leave the candidates to slug it out.
Yes.
And I'm watching with excitement, really. But I think it's important that we must remember that the challenges of this economy did not happen overnight. They are the product of a missed opportunity, series of missed opportunities by the party he now represents. If they had invested in infrastructure, we probably wouldn't be where we are. Yeah. There's a global economic downturn. 500 of some of the world's richest people have lost a lot of their resources. So it's not a local problem. But the economies that survive economic turbulence are those that are built on very solid foundation. They will pass the time. So the last managers of the economy built an economy on quicksand, share the money, infrastructure of the stomach. We remember that.
Yes.
So, and this government is now building the foundation for tomorrow's reliability. an economy rooted first on solid infrastructure.
Not like infrastructure of the stomach.
Not infrastructure.
But infrastructure for the stomach.
For the stomach. Thank you for the pun. Thank you. That's the poet in you. So, but let me also say that it is important that those who, and I respect all of the candidates who have offered themselves to serve. That's why I respected them. They are different from those who just talk. Some people have said, I want to serve, give me the problem. That is fine. They have my respect for that. And it doesn't go beyond that. But where they lose my respect is when they are not prepared, where they don't have their facts right. If you don't have the facts right about an economy, you can't manage that economy. So when that candidate begins to say things that are not true about figures, Nigerians must be very careful. There were 14 different statements credited to him. I've asked my staff to fact-check him. Out of the 14, 10 were wrong. One of it was that there were 2 million cars in Nigeria. There were so many others. 10 were wrong. He was right on 3.
Even Lagos has more than 2 million cars.
So you need to be very careful about those kind of things. And that's why I always tell people, when somebody says something as a matter of fact, please check it. We're all human beings and we can get things wrong.
Okay. So, what do you call it? Second Niger Bridge. You were in the presentation at the floor of the Senate when the president was booed, when they mentioned the second Niger Bridge. And I was looking for your face at that time, but they didn't focus on your face. I knew you were just watching. What's going on? I mean, they mentioned some of your projects and there was heckling going on.
Well, happily, my projects are being reported. People are going, they're seeing. So there's not much of a debate. I think that perhaps the president took the opposition by surprise. This was not the usual budget speech of numbers. It was a budget speech first on what I have done. And that surprised many of them, that he will be so granular and so detailed. And perhaps he showed up some of them that in spite of all of the obstacles, this president is being creative. So if you don't give me money, I'll go to the sukuk. If you don't give me money, I'll create an infrastructure development fund. Against all the odds, I will succeed where you didn't do well. And that's not unexpected. It's just the language and the behavior, and I think many people have commented about that. So, but to the second Niger Bridge, I think in the last 2 days, my attention was brought to a visit by the governor of Anambra State to the place, and that he seemed quite satisfied with the progress of work. So the point to make therefore is that if the person who is receiving the service is pleased with it, who are you then to complain? But I think I must dwell a bit on, again, the economics of that bridge. The economics. The economics are that we are going to need 4 million cubic meters of sand to be supplied. So that's why you see dredgers on site, mining sand. Every dredger is operating with engines, diesel. Somebody is supplying that diesel. Somebody is moving the sand. We are going to require, I think, 21,000 tons of steel that has to be produced largely in Nigeria. So the steel farms are getting ready. We are going to need, I think, 664 tons of aggregates. Again, a lot of mining. That does not include several hundreds of tons of bitumen and cement. And the last time I went there, even the local people who sell food are saying this project must not stop. Because they are also providing the nourishment of the workers. Now, what is going on now is piling work. It may not be visible to the uninformed eye. Tons of steel and cement are going into 50, 60 meters of the depth of the river to ensure that the foundations of the bridge, what you then see later are the pile caps. And that will come. Sadly, a lot of work couldn't be done during the rainy season because the water levels were very high. They rose as high as 35 meters. If you do that, that's about the height of a 12-story building almost. So the water levels have subsided now to about 15 meters. That's why you see increased work there, and that will continue during the rainy season. Of course, by the end of the rainy season, more pile caps will come, and the perpetual Thomases will now see
that something's going on. Yeah.
The president has provided support for that project through the Infrastructure Development Fund. So that project won't be challenged by financing again. It will only now be challenged by how much work can be done, the weather, and all of the usual logistic challenges that accompany big projects like that.
Obi Ezekwesili, also a candidate in this presidential season, has also taken a jibe at power that some of the frameworks, legal frameworks, have not been put in place.
Well, you know, as I said, I'm watching all the candidates, and I know that in an election season, sometimes the mouth leads before the head. But I think that she knows better. I saw her in the market, so maybe she was out of her comfort zone, chasing the vice president through the markets. And maybe she missed her lines. But let me say emphatically for the record that what she said is not correct, that the reforms recommended or the provisions of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act are not being implemented is not true. What is true is that between 2005, when the law was enacted, the previous managers of the economy waited until 2013 before the privatization took place. So they lost 8 years. So if there was a blame at all, it should go to the people who were in charge. From day one that I took office, we have been working with that law. I have read the law. I have spoken about it. I've asked every Nigerian who has time to read it, you will understand. So policies like the eligible customer, to allow big consumers to get their power direct from the generation companies, is a product of that law being implemented. Policies like the mini grid regulations, which is now giving power to some markets and potentially 9 universities which we're implementing, is a product of the implementation of that act. The reconstitution of the Rural Electrification Agency as a byproduct of the Rural Electrification Strategic Implementation Plan, which was approved by President Buhari in 2016, is a product of the implementation of that act. In fact, the law stipulated that that plan should have been delivered within a year of the enactment of that law. Since 2006, it did not happen until President Buhari became president. And it is through that agency that all of these market interventions is being done. So factually, she is wrong.
There, of course, there was an article charge that some people are collecting money and not doing their work.
Well, he would be better able to account for those who collected money and didn't do their work. But there's evidence to support the maladministration of that time. And the evidence is that they left 800 containers imported with Nigeria's money in the port for a decade. It is the Buhari government that has retrieved, I think we retrieved 720
of the 800.
Of the 800. It was 690. The last report I got is that we now reach 720. And those are some of the power plants that have gone to projects like Kaduna Power Plant, which has been operating in fits and starts of construction implementation. So, but nobody is collecting money now and running away. And that's a marked difference between our seriousness, our competence, and our administerial superiority over them. It won't happen, and it's not happening under the watch of this government. So Nigerians must take that statement, that admission, that they supervised a government where people collected money and ran away. They must take it seriously. Because if they entrust them with this government, it will happen again. Thank you.
Well, I can go on and on and on and on and on. We have had, of course, in his articulate gusto, the bellwether minister, Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN, on our show today. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you once again. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you for watching the program today. You can catch up with my published columns and articles on my website, www.samomasheye.com. Also follow me on Twitter. My handle is @SamOmasheye. Enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time, be good.